Okay, welcome to chapter 10. We're solving linear equations. So today's lesson is on one-step equations, right, where you only have one thing to do, and then we'll keep building on to two-step and more complicated in the next coming days. So our main objective or our goal is to figure out what the variable equals. Now remember the variable, so the thing that varies or changes, right? It's going to be the letter. So all of your answers are going to be like y equals something, right? Or x equals something. So in this particular question here, it says negative 2w equals 6. Now remember when they're side by side like that, it means that we're multiplying. So our first method to solve these questions is by inspection. So what that means is that you're going to ask yourself one or two questions. Right? Maybe you say, what number multiplied by negative 2 equals negative 6? Right? Or maybe you're going to say, what number results from dividing 6 by negative 2? Right? You see this opposite operation thing going on. So for me, right, I'm going to start with the first question. What do I have to multiply negative 2 by? Right, so negative 2 times something gives me a positive. Now I know that a negative times a negative gives me a positive, so it's going to be a negative answer. And I know that 2 times 3 is 6. So my answer here is w equals negative 3. Okay, so there's a couple here that I'd like you to try. Let's do division one together. Remember that this line here, when it looks like a fraction, also means that we're dividing. So I'm saying to myself, something divided by negative 2 equals negative 7. Right, now I know that 14, right, divided by negative 2, right, should give me negative 7. A positive divided by negative is a negative. So the answer is, and they all should end with an r equals, right, a number, r equals 14. Okay, so why don't you try those three there, and then you can check your answers in a moment. Okay, welcome back. So hopefully you've got the answers that are on the screen above. I want to show you a second strategy. So the second way to solve these questions is called using the opposite operation method. So opposite operation, we've talked about this when we talk about bed mass. So the opposite of dividing is multiplying, right? The same as the opposite of adding, right, is subtracting. So here in this question, w divided by negative 2 is 6. Now multiplying is opposite to dividing. So what we're going to do is if I divide by negative 2, I'm going to multiply each side by negative 2. Okay, it looks like that. Now it's really tempting to only do it on the one side, right? But what you'll notice below is that we have to keep it balanced. For proper mathematical communication, you can't change something on one side and not the other side, right? It's no longer equal. You're tipping the balance. So if you write negative 2 on the right, you've got to write it on the left. Now, the reason this all works out is that if I'm multiplying by negative 2 on the left, it looks kind of something like when we were talking about fractions. Remember that negative 2 is really negative 2 over 1. If I'm multiplying that by w over negative 2, here come our fraction rows. Remember that we could cancel within the question, right? We did that sometimes. Or a lot of times people, right, would cancel at the end, right? Negative 2 times w is negative 2w, or 1 times negative 2 is negative 2, and cancel here. And you would get just plain old w, right, or 1 over w, or, sorry, 1w. So what happens is when we multiply these guys by negative 2, those negatives cancel, and I just get w equals 6 times negative 2, or w equals negative 12. Okay? Now, a lot of you can probably solve this question by inspection, right? Just be able to say, hey, something divided by negative 2 is 6, that something's negative 12. Now, later on, using this opposite operation will be your only option. So it's really important to get into good practice and good habits now. So please try using the opposite operation method for the following questions below. Alright, let's do maybe the first one here because it's a bit different than our example. Right, now 12d means that you're multiplying. Opposite to multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to go through and divide each side by negative 12. It should look like this. I want to see that purple 12 or the pencil 12 on both sides. So what happens is 12s cancel, right? and 7 equals D. It's okay to write it that way. Right? It doesn't have to be D equals 7. Right? Both are fine. Okay, so why don't you pause the video and try the next 3. Okay, so hopefully you got the answers you see on the screen above. Why don't you turn the page over now, and I want to show you how to check with substitution. Now, this way you'll know for sure that you got the right answer, right? And you won't have to wonder how you did on an assessment, right? You'll know if you got the question right or wrong. So let's go back to this question we already did, right? W divided by -2 equals positive 6. So, right, opposite to dividing is multiplying. So I'm going to divide each side, or multiply each side by -2. Right? That cancels. W equals 6 times -2. Right, so W equals 12. Now, I want to know if I got the right answer. So I'm going to do a check. Now, we talked earlier about left side equals right side, right? We have to keep that balance. So the left side of my equation is W divided by -2. The right side of my equation is 6, right? So I'm going to substitute what I think W is, right? I think W is 12. So if W is 12 divided by -2, right, the right side still stays 6. 12 divided by -2 is -6. Whoa, wait a minute. I can see here that I made a mistake, right? It's not 12, but -12, right? Maybe you caught that, but if you didn't, right, a check is a good way to see. If the left side equals the right side, you know for sure you got the question right. Okay, so here's the solve and check. Alright, now there's 2 here. Alright, let's do maybe the second one together. Now it's saying that 6. Oh, I meant to change it. Actually, yeah. Alright, 1 second here. Okay, if you should have an updated copy, but if not, let's say 63 equals 7p. Now, opposite operation to multiplication is division. So you divide both sides, right, by 7. 7's cancel, right, and you get 63 divided by 7 equals p. 63 divided by 7. So that's what I think the answer is. I'm going to do a check. Right, the left side should equal the right side. On my left side here, my right side is 7p. So 63 doesn't change. I think it equals 9. So I'll say 7 times 9, 3. Hey, 63, they equal. I got it right. So why don't you try D divided by -5 equals 3, and please do a check as well. Okay, welcome back. Now let's put this into an application with the following word problem. It says, for the month of January, the average temperature in Edmonton is 1/3 the average afternoon temperature in Yellowknife. The average afternoon temperature in Edmonton is -8 degrees Celsius. What's the average temperature in Yellowknife? Now, we've talked, you may have seen the writing on the communication rubric about let statements. Here's an example where we need a let statement. So, we're going to start with saying, let E represent Edmonton's temperature. Edmonton's temperature. And then let Y represent Yellowknife's temperature. Okay? So, once you have your let statements done, right, let's see if we can come up with an equation. So this says that in Edmonton is 1/3 the average afternoon temperature in Yellowknife. So that means Edmonton is 1/3 Yellowknife. Now another way, remember this is like kind of like multiplying fractions. Another way of writing that is E equals Y over 3, which is kind of the format we're a bit more used to. Now we know that Edmonton is -8. So rather than writing E, let's write -8 equals Y over 3. And look at that. You've just come up with your own equation. Right? So that's the hardest part. Now we'll need to solve it. If I'm dividing by 3, right, you multiply both sides by 3. The 3's cancel. That means Y equals -8 times 3, or -24 equals Y. Right? So my concluding statement would be The temperature in Yellowknife is -24 degrees Celsius. Now, if you have room, it's always a great idea to check your answer. And this check depends on whether or not you got the equation right. So I've got -8 over here, y over 3 here, -8 equals my y is -24 over 3. Hey, look at that, -8 equals -8. So based on the equation I came up with, right, -24 is the correct answer. Okay, so that's it for your video today. You have 4 questions down here. Please practice them. Try to use the opposite operation method and a check if possible. And if you have any questions, right, we'll see you in class. Thank you.